motivic figures, because suddenly you're hypnotized and drawn into this world where they happen again and again, but always with a new meaning. It's amazing because an hour and 20 minutes can go by like that when you get drawn into this world. Wagner went back to the medieval German romances, as I said, for his source material, and I know you know some of the other great Wagner operas drawn from that same period, like Parsifal and Tannhäuser and Lohengrin, the Meistersinger, and most of all the four-part Ring of the Nibelung, the Rheingold and the Walküre and the Siegfried and the Götterdämmerung. So in all of these operas, he is exploring myth, but really Tristan and Isolde is unique. It's the only opera which is an exploration of passionate love. Wagner considered, instead of Parsifal, that his last opera would be about Buddha, because he was fascinated, as I said, with Schopenhauer's idea that we become unhappy and suffer because we want things. And so he thought an opera about Buddha would be the ultimate way to deal with that question. But finally, sticking with his aesthetic of German myth, he went back to that Parsifal myth and was able to achieve the same things. We can't talk about Wagner without touching on the anti-Semitism that now we know was part of Wagner's approach to the world. And what I found is that Wagner was most anti-Semitic when Meyerbeer became a more famous composer. That there are more evil people in the world than Richard Wagner. He certainly would say and do anything, but truthfully, Meyerbeer had supported Wagner and they were friends at an earlier point. Meyerbeer gave Wagner money, who didn't, right? So it was only because Meyerbeer had the audacity to be more successful with Le Prophète in 1850 than Wagner had been with Lohengrin that made Wagner write this despicable article called Jews in Music, Judentum in der Musik. And I think that although Cosima, well, we'll get to her, there were certainly more rabid anti-Semites. Wagner's morality existed only in as much as it affected the production of his works and the realizations of his artistic dreams. So amoral, certainly. A person who devoted their lives to trying to wipe out Jews, no, he was not that. That Hitler seized upon Wagner's music and said, this is true German music, we can't lay that at Wagner's feet. It's not Wagner's fault. Wagner said he wanted a German race that didn't exist yet. It was essentially a German race that would want to spend all their time and energy supporting the kind of operas that only he wrote. So, it wasn't really a political agenda. It wasn't an ethnic agenda. It was a Wagner agenda. And this is both his downfall, but also his strength, because in his life, he was able to achieve these things. He was able to even come out of debt. When Wagner was almost 50, he, as I say, was quite a writer, and he had a public platform where people really read what he had to say. He wrote, "There should be a prince," and this was in an era where suddenly the middle class was becoming very strong. "There should be a prince who would underwrite the great artistic outpourings of a society," by which he meant himself. Guess what? King Ludwig, who was 17, read that, contacted Wagner. Wagner went to Munich, and Ludwig said, "I'm going to pay off all your debts, and what else do you need?" So in the end, Ludwig paid $500,000, a huge amount to Wagner, and only when his court began to think that Wagner would have too much influence politically, which Wagner never wanted, was King Ludwig forced in 1865, when Wagner was 53, to get Wagner out of Munich. But King Ludwig came through later. So suddenly, after this life of being a debtor, constantly in danger of being imprisoned by his creditors, Wagner finds, as if by magic, a patron who will not only support him, but encourages him to realize whatever his artistic dreams are. So Wagner was very fortunate, and it's thanks to Ludwig that we have the later operas and that Bayreuth exists. It's thanks to Franz Liszt and some other people as well, but obviously Ludwig had the means and the desire to support Wagner in a way that nobody else had. So, as I said, the affair with Mathilde Wesendonck did not last. But Wagner had another great love, and this was Liszt's daughter, Cosima. Now, Cosima, unfortunately, was married to Hans von Bülow, one of the greatest conductors who conducted the music of Liszt and conducted the music of Wagner. He was a great pianist. Everybody thought he was one of the highest musical aristocrats of Europe. And when he and Cosima had their first child, and she said, let us name her Isolde, he didn't figure out that, in fact, it was not his child. And the next two children were named Eva and Siegfried. They weren't his children either. And finally, Cosima confessed everything to von Bülow, and von Bülow said, at least you are having these children with one of the greatest men who has ever lived. Go figure. So he makes this sacrifice. Cosima, who is 24 years younger than Wagner, moves in with Wagner, and they remain married for the rest of Wagner's life. So Cosima really was a vicious person, and her anti-Semitism outstripped Wagner's by a long way. It is she who really is responsible for some of the bad rap that Wagner gets in that department. However, as a couple, she gave him incredible strength, and so we have to thank Cosima for many things. She enabled him to continue with Meistersinger and Parsifal, and, ultimately, a great genius creating these works. It should be judged for the works. Wagner was clearly someone who didn't feel that someone's wife was their personal property, was nevertheless able to create things that I think transcended who he might have been as a mortal human being. And the ideas that he returns to again and again in his operas are ideas that he'd had as a younger man and finally is able to realize in the operas. So at the end of Tristan and Isolde, the idea that Isolde's will is so strong and her love is so overwhelming that she has made a promise to Tristan that she's going to die with him so that their love can never be separated, is realized not only dramatically but musically. And you'll hear, as we do this final aria from Tristan and Isolde, the Liebestod, the love-death, you'll hear many of the leitmotifs that we've talked about already. You'll hear... You'll hear this. You'll hear... And you'll hear the... It's as if Wagner not only brings the lovers together, but brings together all of the musical children that he's introduced us to through the course of this incredible opera. So once again, Jeanne-Michèle, we're going to do the Liebestod from the end of Tristan and Isolde. What I think many of you know is that tomorrow Jeanne-Michèle gets on a plane and she goes into rehearsal to sing the role of Isolde at the Dallas Opera with Clifton Forbes as Tristan, and there will be 4 performances in the latter part of February. So it's not so far away, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to go over to Dallas, I think it opens February 16th?
16th, yes.
And goes to the 28th, 9th?
25th is the last
25th.
show. And then I get on a plane and go to Germany to sing.
So she has sung 10 minutes of the role for you today. But the thing that really unites Tristan and Isolde is they both love to sing really loud. And you have to imagine, over the course of 4 hours, most of the singing is Isolde. And so what is it like to sing that way for 2 hours over a gigantic orchestra?
I'm a weird singer that likes to sing longer, so let's do it all again.
Okay.
You're transported with the music. As Joe's told you about Wagner's story, even just hearing little bits, I get taken into it. And when I'm in a part like this, and this part in particular for me, I joined the orchestra, I joined this whole world. One thing that Wagner did that no other composers really did was each piece that he wrote was its own world. The musical language he used is very unique to that piece. The themes are obviously unique. And I joined them. And
But does that give you like physical strength,
it gives
just
physical
stamina?
strength, emotional strength. And it gives you, I don't know, for me a piece like this is, it's a very spiritual experience. Very Santa Fe of me to say. But it's, I have to
Wagner
be
would
very
have approved
connected.
completely.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I have to be really connected with everything to do these kind of parts.
I think what I'd really like to do is say, let's have questions for a little bit, because I think we have a few minutes left. So it would probably, 10 minutes, that's perfect.
Can you just say a sentence or two about orchestration, Wagner's orchestration?
Yes. Wagner regarded the orchestra, as I said, as a soloist. So in his orchestration, he chose colors that represent different feelings. You can point to spots in Mozart and say, here that oboe playing one dissonant note is a heart-rending, beautiful thing. But in Wagner, he takes that idea 100 times farther. So quite apart from the sheer size of the orchestra, is the fact that he's using orchestral color to represent emotion. He's using specific instruments to represent specific characters or emotions, so that the whole orchestra is a character. Once Wagner did that, the world could not go back to the way, you know, Handel or other wonderful composers used the orchestra. You can say Verdi wrote great operas, but you cannot say there was anything specifically